Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And now it's time to talk about the debut album from Rae Sremmurd, titled SremmLife. Now, one of the things that I've always tried to do as a music critic is ascertain what is the purpose of the albums that I review. I look for themes, ideas, or at least artistic intentions. And it's one of the main reasons I tend to be kinder than most to most pop records. After all, most shallow pop music only has a very limited purpose. And if it accomplishes that purpose, it's hard to argue that it doesn't succeed, at least partially. You might not get a great music or a great pop song. I said a while back in my special comment defending pop music that making a truly great pop song that will actually stand the test of time is often just as difficult as making any other sort of brand of art. But you will eventually pass that low bar. You can make good music here. It's one of the reasons that I can kind of enjoy crunk or hair metal. Sure, they aren't trying to be anything but dumb party music, but there's a scale of quality even there, and then you can have music that succeeds by those low standards. And sure, some of my rationale here is pure populism. Like it or not, as much as I might enjoy 2.5-hour experimental rock records of 34-minute songs, or half improvised acid and post-punk performance art pieces, the mainstream public's enjoyment of music, it's a lot narrower. They'll listen to a pop song for a season or two, and odds are, unless it really does stick with them, they'll forget it in a few months. And with attention spans getting shorter and shorter with every generation, that window of relevance for pop acts is getting smaller and smaller. Forget Andy Warhol saying that everybody will roughly be famous for approximately 15 minutes in the future. Try 6 seconds. Which takes us to Rae Sremmurd, a Mississippi-based hip-hop duo that made a big smash in 2014 with 2 hits, No Flex Zone and No Type. And from those singles alone, and the fact that Mike Will Made It was supposedly producing their debut album, I was absolutely dreading this record. Not only was this album being released in the dumping ground of early January, I got the impression that any attempts at lyricism were going to be pitched right out the window when paired with one of my least favorite producers in modern hip-hop. But you know what? I had to be fair, and there wasn't like anything else that's coming out. Hell, this could be the record that manages to surprise me and win me over for Mike Will Made It and these two guys. This could be a good album, right? Well, yeah. Let's get real here, guys. The majority of you already know my preferences with music, hip-hop especially, and I suspect that a whole bunch of you just wanted me to review this so I could tear this record to shreds. Well, you're gonna get your wish, because SremmLife is a goddamn atrocity from top to bottom, an absolute waste of my time that would be better suited listening to Slater Kinney or Doomtree in preparation for their upcoming releases, or hell, listening to any of the absolute worst albums I covered last year. Ultraviolence by Lana Del Rey, Cole Swindell's self-titled album, Future's Honest, they're all better than this. But there's gonna be a lot of people making excuses for Rae Sremmurd and their brand of hip-hop. And with this review, I'm gonna explain why many of those excuses, they just don't fly with me, because this album sucks. Now first off, let me start by saying that I get this sort of music is intended for parties and not expected to be deep or lyrical. And you know what? That's fine. There's a place for that sort of music. Andrew WK and Lil Jon built their entire careers off of making that sort of music. But there's not being deep or conscious or lyrical, and then there's just being plain incompetent behind the microphone, which is where I deposit Rae Sremmurd. From a technical rapping ability, these guys can't write rhymes or maintain a solid flow to save their lives. The repetition of words to fill up space, rhyming words with themselves when they bother to rhyme them at all, dropping the flow entirely when they need to fill up bars, and barely able to ride the leaden, chunky beats. Put another way, I shouldn't feel like I can write better rhymes and rap better than these guys can. And the most I ever rap is when I want to screw around at karaoke. Well, you can have competent rappers who make party music that's better structured and better written than this. Kid Ink, Big Crib, T.I., Ludacris, Lil Wayne when he was in his prime. Hell, I even put Flo Rida, Rick Ross, and Pitbull on the list here. And look, it doesn't help matters that as rappers, Rae Sremmurd have some of the least appealing voices you'll ever hear. Nasal, barely ever able to hold a note. The more immediately grating vocals come from Sway Lee, who sounds like he's barely out of high school and has a bad head cold to boot and a pipe wrench tightened on his nuts. Slim Jimmy is better, barely, but he sounds like he's trying to do a Yo Gotti or Jeezy impression with his rougher delivery, and he's got nowhere near the gravitas or charisma to pull this off. What's worse is that they're clearly trying to sound like they're imposing or like they're hot shit, and they have nowhere near the charisma, presence, or vocal power to make it remotely believable. They can't sing, period, and with the drizzle of autotune all over it makes them look like future wannabes. It's actively grating to listen to these guys' voices, and when I'm stuck hoping for a Big Sean guest verse to save the song, and really he does drop the best verse on this album, you're heading into deep trouble, I'm sorry. And what's all the more infuriating is they actually did manage to get Nicki Minaj on this album, and then they only put her on a chorus. What a waste. And at this point, should I even bother talking about any of the content here? Every single song of this album falls into the exact same mold. Luxury porn, gross intoxication, stealing other guys' girlfriends, and swag. And putting aside the asinine emptiness of it all, what's most striking here is the inconsistencies. They ask a girl why they'd ever leave her, and then go on saying how they rotate girls like nothing. They tried to find a no-flex zone and then spend the entire song flexing. Apparently the rules don't apply to them. Then they diss girls for not being serious or sticking with them when they plainly have no respect for any women whatsoever, saying they don't have a type when they followed a line later with "bad bitches is the only thing that I like," which clearly shows they do have a type beyond the grammatical errors and objectification. I mean, if you're gonna be shallow assholes, at least be consistent at it. And what's worse is that there's no struggle or story here whatsoever. None of the overblown mafioso fantasy of Rick Ross, no attempt at a gangsta vibe like YG, nothing but artless bragging and treating women like disposable things that they can buy. There's an entire song of these two idolizing Donald Trump, one of the most flagrantly contemptible and revolting businessmen on the planet. And you can't tell me for a second that there's self-awareness here. It's not so hyperbolic it's funny and like a riff-raff vein, or so weird and base that it's fascinating like with Lil B. It's just artless, vapid greed. That's it. It's probably the reason that the pop rap Safe Sex Paychecks is the best song on the album for me. Sure, it's a dumb, formulaic pop rap dance song with plenty of the same bragging, but at least they're trying to party and have fun instead of trying to say, I have all these gaudy brands and will steal your girlfriend and there's nothing you can do about it. Why would anyone want to listen to that, watch themselves get berated like that? It's really insulting coming from these guys. Now, some of you are saying, Mark, you've given similar material a pass before. What moral high ground do you have to stand on with this? And you know what? That's actually true. Go back to the mid-2000s and there was a lot of crunk music that I did like that was just as shallow. Want to know the difference there? Production that didn't blow ass. I've never liked Mike Will Made It's material, and here's a prime example of why. Dank, eerie, trying way too hard to be dark and menacing and neglecting a good tune or melody that just feels completely out of place with shallow material that desperately needs something more upbeat to make these songs feel fun. Say what you will about how shallow crunk music was in the mid-2000s, it at least had energy and presence and at least trying to bring in a meatier, thicker synths beyond just the bass line. And more than that, it was populist. Lil Jon had his call and responses, an infectious energy, and a voice that could actually match his production. Rae Sremmurd's voices, they might match their production, but without populism or energetic melodies, the songs feel way too dark and bleak to make me want to get up and dance or party or feel anything but repulsed. The pseudo-gothic choir to unlock the swag, the oily chintzy synth on No Flex Zone, that ear-splitting high synth on the atrocious My Ex, the sloppy chiptune and Up Like Trump, the keyboard line on Throw Some Mo that sounds like it was played on a muted Casio from the late 80s, the farty layers of synth on You Know, and the abuse of pitch shifting and pitch correction all over this album in a desperate attempt to make these tracks feel imposing that fails miserably. And when you dig deeper into the melodies, they're either shoved way to the back of the mix or they're so basic and simple and saturated with minor chord progressions to make the songs just feel creepy and sleazy in the least attractive way possible. But I think the largest issue here is the tempo. If you're gonna go darker with your sound and intend this for partying, why would you want material this slow and inert? Hell, that's probably my most consistent issue with Mike Will Made It. You can at least fill up a real textured mix, but for all of his biggest songs and pretty much for this entire album, the tempo feels way too sluggish, almost demanding that you be drunk off your ass and pounding lean for it to be danceable at all. And look, I know some of you are saying, look Mark, the reason this music exists is just for dumb fragments for the Vine, which is the only reason these guys are popular in the first place. And you know what, maybe so, but these aren't just 6-second fragments for the Vine, they're fully fleshed out songs, most of which actually run long. And as long form songs that the artists are plainly taking seriously with a darker sound, I'm sorry, they don't deliver here. And sure, it's dumb, ignorant material, but there's a way of doing this stuff so that it's infectious and fun. Lil Jon understood that, Pitbull gets it, hell, even Soulja Boy and Mims and LMFAO understood that. But here, the content is shallow at best and offensive at worst. The instrumentation either underwhelms or is aggressively infuriating. And again, when your best constructed rap verse on the album is from Big Sean, you got problems, I'm sorry. And this just isn't me being a hip-hop purist, someone who hates pop music, but when it's this incompetent, lacking in good melodies, and any sense that I would want to party with these guys, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. The last time I heard an album this bad was Willpower by will.i.am, and at least that album had more ideas than this track. So for me, you know what? It's gonna be my lowest rating yet. I'm thinking a 2 out of 10, and no way in the 9 hells am I ever recommending this. But you know what? If you want a record with songs designed to soundtrack bad World Star videos made fun of by white hipster douchebags on Vine, or to soundtrack a bad ripoff of that painful Project X movie from 2012, Rae Sremmurd delivers. On it for that reason, go check it out. Otherwise, avoid it like the plague. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Yeah, if there's anything else coming out that's better than this, please let it be better than this. I'd be happy to take a look at it. There's not a lot going on in early January. And if there's anything else I'd be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.